More. Money can't buy happiness. That's what Howard Hughes said when he amassed billions of dollars in the mid-1900s. He had this goal to be the greatest film producer in the world, the greatest pilot in the world, the richest man in the world, and the best golfer. And he did pretty good on a lot of these things, although I don't know what his golf game was like. You'll have to, dig deeper on that. But there is this legendary story that he landed a plane on what is now the LA Country Club golf course to golf with none other than Audrey Hepburn. So pretty cool, right? We think, man, if he can do that, he's got to have everything, right? But he was the one who coined the phrase, money can't buy happiness. And he ended his life in a hotel room surrounded by a few aides who didn't know him well and shrouded in paranoia and secrecy. So it didn't go well for him. He learned what Solomon learned, who we've been talking about, that titles, money, all these things that we can amass, they promise more, but they don't deliver it, right? They're supposed to bring us happiness, but they don't deliver it. They leave us dissatisfied. And if we don't understand this, we're going to be at the end of our life wishing we had done things differently. So we don't want to do that. But the reality is, I bet you guys are all sitting there going, yeah, but, right? We hear these stories and we're like, yeah, but if I had it, I'd still be me and do it really well, but also have all the things that I need, right? We feel a little like this comedian feels.
Don't you love that one? Money doesn't buy happiness. Do you live in America? Because it buys a wave runner. You ever seen a sad person on a wave runner? Have you? Seriously, have you? Seriously, have you? Try to frown on a wave runner. Oh, they're so awesome. It's just throttle. People smile as they hit the pier.
It's hilarious, right? I mean, but we kind of feel this way, right? We feel like, man, money can buy all the things that are going to make me happy. But the problem is we can't ride a wave runner through life, right? We have to get off at some point. And then when we get off, we're trying to figure out what's the next thing that's going to bring me the happiness that the wave runner brought me, right? What's the next thing that's going to satisfy? What's the next thing that's going to bring me the happiness that I deserve? Howard Hughes and Solomon, they tried it all, and in the end, it left them dissatisfied. It left them empty. And the only thing that satisfies and brings life, I'm going to tell you, is Jesus. Following Jesus leads to more, and that's what we're going to spend the entire time on today. And for those of you that don't know me, my name's Amy Pendergraft, and I'm on staff here. Hi. Hey, thanks. And we've spent the last 4 weeks. This is our last week on More. I promise we won't talk about it anymore after this More. But we've asked the same question over and over again. And the question is, what do you want more of? And the answers are the same every week, right? We want a little more money. We want a little more stuff. We want some nice cars. We want some clothes. And why do we want all these things? That's really the question. Why do we want more? And the answer is because we think that's what's going to satisfy us, right? We think that's what's going to make things better, right? We're like, okay, if I just have a little bit more in the bank, I'm going to feel better. If I have nicer clothes, I'm going to fit in a little bit better. Or if I have, a brand new cool car, then things are going to go better for me. And look, I'm not minimizing it. We live in a world where we need these things. I mean, maybe not like a Lamborghini. I don't know if anyone needs a Lamborghini, but we need nice things, right? We need things. We need money to pay our bills. And when you don't have it, it's really hard. Life is hard. And you look at someone else who has it and you're like, man, if I just had what they had, then I'd be happy. But the problem is that it's elusive, right? We get a little bit more. We make a little more than we did last year, and we start off and we're like, oh, yes, thank goodness. I'm making more. And then we realize really quickly that it's just not quite enough and we need just a little bit more, right? We buy all these things, our clothes become outdated, our cars start to, they lose value the minute you drive them off the lot, right? We fill up our houses with stuff, and then we put extra stuff in our garages, and then we overflow our garages to storage units, and we're like, man, I just need a little bit more, right? And so today we're going to talk about the fact that none of these things satisfy us. We kind of live our life a little bit like this. We say, happiness is just around the corner. All I have to do is work a little harder, right? All I have to do is earn more money, buy more things, keep going, right? So then, if amassing all this stuff doesn't work, if getting more money doesn't work, what does? What is actually going to bring life? Jesus tells us. John 10:10. Let's look at this. John 10:10 says, Jesus' words, these are Jesus' own words. He says, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come that they may have what? Life, right? And have it to the what? Full. What kind of life? Full life. Jesus says, look, I came and I'm here to bring you life, and not just any kind of life, but a full life. And that word full translates to a rich, satisfying, abundant, overflowing kind of life. Who doesn't want that? Like, sign me up, right? Jesus came to bring an overflowing, a more kind of life. Like, I am an all-in person. I do not want to leave anything on the table. Like, I want to be in, dig in, do it all. I want the more overflowing kind of life, right? I don't want to miss out on this. And I think you do too, right? The alternative stinks. None of us want to end up at the end of our lives like Howard Hughes did, right? Realizing that we chased after a bunch of things that left us empty and lonely and paranoid. We're going to be burned out and bummed out. Like, that is not what we want. So if Jesus came to bring life, how do we get it? What does it cost? What do we need to do? I mean, that's what we figure out, right? When we want something, we're like, okay, what do I need to do to get it, right? What is the cost? And Jesus tells us right here in the passage. That's the cool thing about the Bible, is like when you read it in context, it helps you understand itself, which is really awesome. So we're going to look at the surrounding verses, John 10:9 and John 10:11. And in each of these two verses, Jesus tells us something about himself that helps us understand how he came to bring us this full life. And he uses two I am statements. And it doesn't hit us the same way, but this was a really big deal. Because when he said, I am, he was reminding the Israelites of the time when God met Moses in the wilderness. Has anyone seen The Prince of Egypt or heard of the story of Moses? Okay, one of those two things will help you. So, Moses he was like Pharaoh's son basically, but then he was really an Israelite and he, killed someone. He ran off to the desert and God was like, hey, I'm still going to use you even though you did that. And that's pretty awesome that God does that. And he's out in the wilderness and he's just taking care of sheep out there, which is awesome because sheep is our theme for today. And he's out taking care of sheep, and then he sees a bush that is on fire but not burning, and the bush talks to him. Whoa. And he's like, this is not normal. So I've never seen this before. Who are you, and what are you? And God reveals himself as I am, or I am who I am, or I am the preeminent one. And so this is how God has revealed himself. So when Jesus comes and he says, I am, everybody there was like, whoa, you are calling yourself God. This is a big deal. So we don't want to lose that because it's really important, because he really is saying, I am God, because only God has the power to give us life and life to the full, right? So I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Okay, so Jesus is giving them two pictures, gate and shepherd. But both of these pictures are really one concept. The concept is a sheep herding term, right? So Jesus loved to use examples that everyone in his audience was familiar with. Most of us, however, are not tending sheep, right? Anyone here tending sheep for a living? Okay. So none of us are doing that. So his audience got what he was saying. They were like, hey, it's not very flattering. Like, what you're saying isn't great. Because they understood that sheep were not very bright animals, right? They can't survive on their own. Sheep have to have a shepherd. You either have an alive sheep with a shepherd or a dead sheep. Like, they wander off. They fall on their back and literally cannot get back over on their own, right? They eat poisonous things. They don't know the difference between food that's poisonous and food that's not. They will literally walk off cliffs, right? This is what sheep are. So it's not very flattering. But what he's saying is that we will follow someone. We have to have someone leading us. And sometimes we listen to like the most charismatic voice in the room, or the most beautiful person in the room, or the richest person in the room, or the loudest voice in the room, right? Sometimes we can be really naive too. So even though it's not very flattering, I think that there's some resonation that comes with it. I found this cartoon and it made me laugh, so I had to share it with you. It says, I met this wolf today. I know what you're thinking, but he's cool. Don't worry. He's a vegan. He invited us to come over for dinner. So there we go. Sheep, awesome. So that's who we are today. Love it. And live sheep always have a shepherd. And Jesus says, okay, this is it. The crux of our passage, John 10:10. Look, you're going to follow someone. So are you following a thief whose goal is to steal, kill, and destroy you? And that word kill is actually best translated as slaughter. So like actively working against you. Or Jesus, whose goal is life, overflowing kind of life. And it kind of like, when we hear this, like it sounds a little bit dramatic, right? We're like, okay, like thief, wow, that's dramatic. But when you look at Howard Hughes' life, like you're like, man, gosh, like he won in the world's ways. Like he did all the things that we tell him to do, right? He succeeded in all these ways, but at the end, he believed the thief that these things would produce happiness and success. And he ended his life miserable and alone and paranoid. That promise of success through all these things led to nothing but pain. And Jesus is like, man, I really want you to get this. Like, I'm not here to hurt you. Like, I'm actually here to bring life. I want something more for you, something better for you, the more kind of life. Follow me. I am the gate. I am the good shepherd. I'm the only shepherd who doesn't leave you heading towards destruction or emptiness. So verse 10:9 says, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They'll go in and go out and find pasture. So a gate is an entrance, right? To enter Jesus' flock or become a part of his family, we must accept what he did for us on the cross. Like that is the crux of it. Jesus saves us. A sheep is going to follow something, and Jesus says, come on inside. Like, come in this gate. There's really good things in this gate. Outside the gate, there's wolves and bears and false promises and lies and things that you think are going to satisfy, but they aren't. But inside the gate is pure love. The moment you're willing to accept the fact that you can't rescue yourself, you're immediately ushered into like the protection and the beauty of being in God's flock and his family. your value is solid. Like Jesus says, hey, you are enough. Like all you have to do is just come on in. You're loved, even though you're a sheep who has a tendency to like run off a cliff by yourself, right? Or run straight into danger. So we must admit that we're a sheep and enter through his willing sacrifice. And this is a tough thing for some of us, right? Because we are afraid that walking in to that sheep pen isn't going to bring life, right? We're afraid that we're going to be like trapped in there and it's going to be weird or hard or, right? And some of us are like, no, I've walked through that gate. Like I did that. But then you're like, yeah, I walked through the gate and I walked right back out and now I'm doing things on my own and I don't need Jesus anymore. I've got this. Like I have my check box of eternity and that's all I needed, right? So there's these different sides of things. But this is where we kind of have a little bit of a misconception about the gate. We have a wrong picture of what the gate is. So when we think of a gate, we think of like this door that opens and closes, right? We think like of this. And we're like, okay, great. So Jesus says, I'm the gate. We walk through. He closes the gate. Life's good. We're good, right? But Jesus' listeners would have actually thought of something else. I mean, some of us also think of this gate. I think this is funny. This is like there's the gate. Oh, there's the gate. Okay, awesome. Go back to the other one. This one, I'm like, I don't know. Something about that. I'm like, wow, I don't know. I need to unpack that. But when his listeners would have heard him talk about how he is the gate, they would have had a different picture. You see, in this time period, there were these sheep pens that sheep were brought into, and it was either brick or stone walls all around. Sometimes there would even be like brambles on the top so that nothing could jump over or get in. And this kind of gate wasn't always there. Oops. Go back, quick, hurry. Sorry, poor Alex. You're doing great. This kind of gate wasn't there necessarily. So some of them had it, like the gate that opens and closes, and some of them just had an open entrance. And when Jesus says, I am the gate, he was actually saying, well, here's this open entrance, and your sheep can come in and come out, but a good shepherd will just sit and sleep at that entrance all night long. And so you can put the picture back up now. Jesus is saying, like, I'm this kind of gate. Like, I'm not just your entrance into eternity, although I am certainly that, right? Like, we have this forgiveness that is an anchor for our souls. Like, it's amazing and wonderful. But he's also saying, like, I am the shepherd that is going to lay here and sleep here all night long. Like, you will never be alone. I am at the gate, making sure that you don't just wander off into oblivion. And I'm the gate that's making sure no predators are coming in. I want you to know that you are worth it. I mean, imagine how reassuring it would be as a sheep to have your shepherd just sleeping right there with you, right? Outside the gate, out here, everybody's trying to prove their worth, trying to show that they're worth something, right? Like, that's why we're doing all these things. That's why we're chasing after all this, to show that we're worth it. But inside the gate, Jesus is like, no, you're worth it just because you're mine. Like, just because you're my sheep. And I love you for that. You are perfectly loved, even though you are a sheep who, or a sinner, someone who does something that's against what God invites us to, right? And Jesus is lying at the entrance, reminding us that he is here with us to protect us from predators, to protect us from the things that want to harm us, from protecting us from having to prove that we're something, right? So that's who Jesus is. And then he says, hey, but I'm not just the gate that saves you, right? I'm the gate that helps lead you in and out and onto green pastures. And that's the shepherd concept, right? And so he also says in John 10:11, he says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. You see, a good shepherd will do anything to see his sheep thrive, right? Like anything. Like he'll rip up his hands because he's trying to get the right food for his sheep that's not poisonous, right? A good shepherd will, walk and hike and run after that lost sheep who's gone somewhere. A good shepherd's going to pick up the sheep who's on its back and flip him over. And a good shepherd is going to get the sheep who's stuck in the brambles out. And the good shepherd's going to remove excess wool that's making it hard, for the sheep to move because it's a heavy burden, right? And of course, a good shepherd is going to lay down his life for his sheep, right? That's what a good shepherd does. And Jesus is saying, hey, I am the good shepherd. And he's inviting us to follow him, right? So if he is this good shepherd who's sleeping outside for us, who's the gate for us, who's here to bring life and life to the full, why is not everybody in the world running after him? Why are we not following him all the time? That's the question, right? And I think it comes back down to what we talked about last week. For anyone who wasn't here last week, we talked about this idea of faith. And sometimes faith is not about helping us to know God who doesn't change, but helping us to see what's really going on in our heart and mind. And the problem isn't the good shepherd. We have this good shepherd, and the problem is not the good shepherd. The problem is us. The problem is if I can really be bold, and I'll just reveal my own heart, I don't always believe that Jesus really came to bring life, right? There's some lies out there, it started in elementary school and middle school, Jesus is kind of a killjoy, right? Let's be honest, that's out there, right? So, do you believe that Jesus came to bring life? I want to give you a couple examples that I think kind of show the difference between how following Jesus actually leads to life and how following the world kind of leads to this death. There's two pathways, right? One promises life and delivers death, and the other promises death and delivers life. So this is a funnel. Okay. Gotta find my notes here. And when we hold it up the way it's designed to, I'm gonna call this the thief, okay? So this is a funnel, and I think it's a little bit like the thief because it promises a lot but delivers very little. So let me give you an example. Money, okay? Do everything you can to get money, right? That's what our world says. It says do everything you can to get money, let go of everything else, push, whatever you need to do, right? Money is going to make you happy. It'll make everything easy. Make money your God. Sacrifice whatever you need to get it. But at the end, you might find yourself just like Howard Hughes was, in this constricted place where he said, man, I have all this money, but nobody who cares, right? He was in a small hotel room with no one who cared about him at the end, right? Okay, what about another one? Drugs and alcohol, right? We say, have it, do it. This is what brings life. It brings freedom, right? It brings relief, right? Woo, long day. Let's have a drink, right? And you crave it, you want it, but those who have really indulged in that way have found themselves in a place that's a little like this, right? You aren't free and full, you're endlessly thirsty and needy, and you can't stop, and you what was meant to bring fun and relief brings dependency and destruction. It rules your decisions and your finances, and it can rule your life, right? Okay, another example, a little lighter one, gossip, okay? We don't like to talk about that. I just mean talking to your friends about, the thing with the friend and the thing, But we think that when we have a secret to share and we share it, that it's cool, yeah, I'm interesting. I've got something great. People are going to be drawn to me. They want to hang out with me. They want to hear from me. And so we share our friend's secrets or we talk about our friend, and all of a sudden our friendship is broken. and that relationship is gone, and there's trust broken, and we're in this small and constricted place. We can be alone and lonely, but Jesus says, hey, I came to bring a different way, okay? Following Jesus, remember, it doesn't lead to less, it leads to more, okay? And I really, really believe this. And so, what if we flip our funnel, okay? Can we flip this funnel, Alex? Yeah. So, we acknowledge that Jesus is our good shepherd and start seeing things through his lens. We follow Jesus, which, if we're honest, can feel a little bit like the short end of this funnel. It can feel a little constricting to follow Jesus, right? It can limit us. We might choose to say no to things that our friends always say yes to, right? We might feel like we're kind of on the outside of the circle, or that people aren't going to want to hang out with us. We might even be accused of being judgmental just because we make choices that are different. But Jesus' limits are meant to bring life, like this full, overflowing, abundant kind of life, right? Following Jesus leads to more. Just like this funnel, limits are constricting, but they bring us more options, a wide future, a hope, right? So let's go back to our examples. Money. What if we acknowledge we need it? Because we do, right? But what if instead of making it our God, we say, hey, I'm not willing to take a job that requires me sacrificing all my relationships that are important? What if we say, hey, I can't sign off on that project because it requires me acting in a way that isn't consistent with my integrity? Right? Or what if we don't have to change our job and we get to stay in the same job, but instead of seeing money as this thing that we're supposed to indulge with, we see it as a gift from God and we live in a generous, full way, right? That's the more kind of life. Drugs and alcohol. What if instead of just having as much as we can all the time, we say, okay, God says, thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. None of us are having as much as we can all the time. Thank you, Terrell. All right. But what if we say, God says, hey, I don't want other spirits to rule you. So that means you have to make some choices, some moderate choices, right? Not to lose control, leading to choices you can regret. That feels constricting. But being moderate and then not making choices that you're regretting the next day, right? Leading to that full and abundant life. Or gossip. What if instead of talking behind someone's back, you sift your words through what Jesus says, which is, hey, don't say things that aren't lifting other people up, right? We sift our words carefully through that, and then all of a sudden, people are going to be like, man, she carried my secret. I can't believe that. Or, wow, he was really encouraging. I can trust him. Right? That brings us to the more kind of life in relationships. And these are all just some silly examples, but they're choices, right? And the choices are reflecting who we're following, right? So it's not about each and every one of the choices. It's really just about who are we following? Who do you believe brings a life? You see, Jesus knit you together in your mother's womb. He created you. He knows what brings you joy, and he knows what your fears are. He knows what's hard for you. He knows the spots where you feel like you're not enough. And he wants to lead you out of that into this full and abundant place, this full and abundant life. Just like the funnel, the narrow way leads to abundance, to green pastures. Following Jesus leads to more. And so I want you to think about this week. I'm going to read you a passage before we end. And this passage is probably the passage that everyone listening would have thought about when Jesus said, I'm the good shepherd, right? So this is King David's words in Psalm 23. Most of us have heard this before in some time in our life. And if you haven't, awesome, because it's going to land fresh and amazing. And when I read these words, feel free to close your eyes and think about what it would mean to really follow Jesus. Because in this passage, David is telling us what kind of more life the Good Shepherd is leading us into. So I'm going to read it to you right now. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord today, tomorrow, next week, the week after that. You'll dwell in the house of the Lord forever. You see, this is the more kind of life that Jesus came to bring. It's a life filled with green pastures and quiet waters. It's a life that's going to restore your soul, where goodness and love are like chasing you down. That's the good life. Tim Keller says, hey, the gospel does not promise you better life circumstances. It promises you a better life. You are not alone. The God of love, our God of love, is with us each step of the way. He's guiding us. He's with us in the dark days when you feel like people are trying to destroy you, and he's preparing this beautiful feast in front of you. He's feeding us and caring for us. He offers us the soul satisfaction of knowing that we are not alone and that we get to dwell with him today, tomorrow, and forevermore. Following Jesus leads to more. So, I'm going to close, but I want to ask you a question. Who are you following? Jesus says there's only two options. Look, there's 100,000 lies that the thief uses. They do not all sound the same. They are not all the same, but there are only two options: Jesus and a thief, a good shepherd and the thief. So if you feel like you've been following the sheep, I want to encourage you to take a different choice, to follow the good shepherd, to follow Jesus. And even if you've checked that Jesus box off, right? What about everyday decisions? Are you following him daily with your choices, with the ways that you're organizing your life, that you're building your life? This week, I want to encourage you, even if you're not there, even if you're like, I don't know who I want to follow actually, and that's okay, that's honest. Read Psalm 23 every day this week. If you have a favorite version, read it in that. If you want to read it in 7 different versions, great, do that too. But read it every day this week and ask yourself, is this a shepherd that's worth following? Is this someone worth following? So I'm going to pray. Heavenly Father, I pray for everyone in this room. I pray today that we would believe you more, like help our unbelief, right? We walk through life, Lord, and we sometimes believe that there is so much life out there and stuff and money and success and all the promises that the world makes, Lord. And you tell us that the life is found in you. And so, Lord, help us to believe that today. Help us to make choices that reflect that. And help us, Lord, to have this overwhelming sense of who you are as the Good Shepherd. I love that picture, Lord, of you just laying outside the sheep pen, protecting us, holding us in, reminding us that we are worth it, that we're valuable. And Lord, I pray that that picture would be a picture that comes to mind each and every day this week when we question or doubt or wonder if you are good. We love you, Lord. In your name, amen.